welcome to our April mid-month wrap-up. So it is the 14th of April, so we're filming this slightly earlier than we normally would because I want to get the video up on the 15th. So at the moment we've actually finished 7 books in April and I am beyond chuffed with this. I will put our hooker-duck up in the cards because we have a very ambitious TBR this month. We're attempting to read all of the Way Book Prize shortlist and we also picked more ducks than we should have, but things are going okay so far and I'm feeling pretty good about the fact that we might be able to finish the rest of it. So I'm not going to share in-depth thoughts on the Way Book Prize books today because we do have a massive reading vlog coming of those with really in-depth thoughts at the end of the month. So I'm not going to give our star ratings on those either because we want it to be a surprise and it gets to the end and you see which one wins, in our opinion. But I am going to talk a little bit more about Pop Goes the Weasel by MJ Arlidge and Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard, which I finished this morning. I will just very, very briefly say Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson, a reread, which is more enjoyable the second time around. And The Stars Were Burning Brightly by Danielle Joando, a reread, which is more enjoyable the second time around. 8 Pieces of Silver by Patrice Lawrence. It's like a murder mystery without a murder. But I really, really enjoyed it. Cane Warriors by Alyce, which is a historical novel, and for someone who doesn't really enjoy historical novels, especially because this one's set in like the 1730, I think, it's very vastly historical, but this one impressed me too. And The Great Garden by Meg Rossoff is the other book that we've finished on the shortlist so far, and I have no words when it comes to that one. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? You'll have to come back towards the end of the month to find out. But now, let's get into the books that we can actually talk a bit more about today. And the first one of those is Pop Goes the Weasel by MJ Arlidge. Now, this is the second book in the Helen Grace series, following Helen Grace, who is the detective inspector. She has had one hell of a time in the first book in this series, which is Eeny Meeny. Some family drama, lost a colleague, very sad. And this deals with the fallout from book 1, as Helen is getting used to the differences in her team. She has one colleague who is off sick after their ordeal, and she has obviously the replacement for the colleague who died, and not only does she have to deal with these new dynamics, but there's also another serial killer on the loose. So in this book it's a prostitute who is killing patrons who are married with children, and there's questions about why she's picking those particular people. Is it because of the fact that they're married, or is it just a coincidence? Is she married and has been cheated on, and is that one of the problems? It's difficult to talk about this one without giving anything away, but what I can tell you is that there is a trope that I don't like in crime novels. And unfortunately, both of MJ Arlidge's novels that I've read so far have this trope in them. I can't tell you what that trope is because it is directly related to the way that the book ends, but it's something that I don't like. And it wasn't until kind of last year that I realised that I had a problem with it. It had impacted my enjoyment of crime novels in the past, but I haven't put my finger on why. But this has just cemented it for me. I think it's a very cheap get-out clause, and it's very easy. And I would prefer it if writers took the harder route because that would be more interesting to me as a reader. What I can tell you is that the problems that I have with book 1 are basically gone in this book. In book 1 I thought that the way that MJ Arlidge writes Helen was, you could definitely tell it was from a male author because she was a bit over-sexualised, even though she's not a very sexual person at all. But she goes to someone who, they're like a dom, and they beat her, and it's made, in the first book it's made out as though it's kind of like a kink, but in this book the motivations behind that choice are explored more thoroughly, and her relationship with the dom is explored more thoroughly too. And I appreciated that because that was like my main problem with the first book, was just the way that Helen was talked about didn't feel very respectful considering she was the protagonist. But this book, obviously I still have the big problem of the kind of trope at the end. And also, I'm just not sure if MJ Arlidge's writing style is for me, which I hate to say, because I find the way that he crafts his stories to be absolutely fascinating. So, some of the chapters will be literally, like, the length of, like, a double page spread. And they'll all follow different characters. So you won't just follow Helen. You'll follow minor background characters who become relevant later on. You might follow the victims of the crime. You might follow the serial killer themselves. And I love the way that it's crafted, but my brain just can't keep up. If I didn't have children and I could sit and read these in a day, I think I would absolutely love them, because I'd be able to remember those little kind of snapshots of future characters. But it all feels very disjointed, and it keeps throwing me out with the story, and it's a big struggle for me to piece it all together at the end. It's a series that I think I would enjoy more upon rereading it, but obviously I don't have time to reread them right now. But I want to like these more than I do like them. I'm giving it 3 stars. I think I also gave Eeny Meeny 3 stars, so it's not a bad rating. It's just a case that the way that they're written is really interesting, and it's very unique, but I'm just not sure if it's for me yet. I'm going to carry on with the series, because the more I read of Helen, the more I want to read from Helen, but it's just going to continue to be a bit of like mental gymnastics, I think. I did nearly kind of reading slump last month, and I did start this one last month, it took me a little while to get through it. So I think I'm going to wait until I'm in a position where my brain is a bit less foggy before I try and pick up book 3. But yeah, still promising, but I'm not convinced at the moment. And the other book that I can talk to you about today is Glass Sword by Victoria Aveyard. This is again the second book in a series. This is the sequel to Red Queen. We follow Mare, who is a red. In this world there are reds and silvers. The silvers have powers, the reds are just kind of the humdrum, normal, everyday people. But Mare is a red with powers. They're referred to as new bloods. In the first book, we follow Mare as she discovers that she has these lightning powers, and as she gets embroiled in some court politics with the Silvers, because they're trying to pretend that she is a Silver so that no other Reds will have like delusions of grandeur and think that they also have powers, because that would be silly. And she is put into a relationship with Maven, who is the prince, but he's the second in line to the throne, so his brother Cal is the first in line to the throne. Maven is the second in line. He's the forgotten prince. He's always in the background until he's not. And I can't say too much more about it without absolutely destroying the events of book 1. But what I can tell you is the first half of this book is painfully slow. I always try to read 10% of a book a day, and this one I was struggling to get through 5% at a time. Until about the halfway mark, and then I read it in about 3 sittings, because the pacing in the second half is impeccable. There are some lovely slow lulls where you get to know these characters more deeply, you get more of the relationships between them, you get to see the intricacies of this world and the plans that they are weaving, you get to see the new characters that have been written in more thoroughly as well, so they're really well fleshed out. So there are a lot of new characters written into book 2, but it's not cheap throwaway cannon fodder characters that you can just see on the page once and then when they die like 3 chapters later you're supposed to feel sad about it. These characters are really well fleshed out, and I actually found myself getting quite choked up when there were named character deaths. One in particular surprised me. I don't think it should have surprised me, but I hoped it wasn't going to happen, and I genuinely felt the tears kind of brewing in the back of my eyes. I was like, oh no, I can't believe that's just happened, that's awful. And it makes me so excited to pick up book 3. If I hadn't already owned book 3 and 4, I might have DNF'd this one, because it is really, really slow. But if you are somebody who has struggled with the first half of this book and has put it down, I would recommend picking it back up again, because the second half is really exciting. There are some twists in this one that I really didn't see coming, and although it does follow the standard YA dystopian fantasy tropes in some respects, like the girl rising to power and the rebellion rising around her, and the on-off will they won't they relationship with the guy from the other side of the lines, it follows some of the tropes, but it's fresh and it's interesting, and I didn't feel that way about Red Queen. I thought Red Queen was a bit derivative and a bit... all the twists that were in there, I saw them coming from a mile away, and it was a bit disappointing. So I don't know if it's because I've left it I read Red Queen June, July time last year. I don't know if it's because I've left it for a good 8 months that I am finding them more surprising. I don't know whether I would have seen it coming more if I'd read these books back to back. But what I can tell you is I did not expect the ending. I literally finished it and just went, ah. And Sean was like, what? Because Sean wasn't reading this one with me. And I told him what had happened, and he's like, oh, that actually sounds really interesting. I'm like, yeah, it was really interesting. It was not what I was expecting. And I don't know how they're going to get out of the situation that they're in. And I will be honest, I'm tempted to just carry on with King's Cage straight away. And I'm not somebody who binge reads series. As I've just said about the MJ Arlidge one, I'm looking forward to taking my time and reading that one in a few months when my brain's a bit less clouded. So the fact that I'm tempted to just say, heck the TBR, and just grab King's Cage off the shelf, that is not like me. And that proves that these characters have something special. I am rooting for the ship. I don't even know if I can mention what the ship is because I don't want to give spoilers, but I am rooting for it. There's, like, they share a bedroom and it's really cute because everybody thinks that, like, more's going on, and she's like, oh, we haven't had time for, like, much to happen. So you haven't had time for nothing. Like, there's not nothing happening. Something's going on there. Like, you've had time for a little bit. And that is cute. I think that I love the fact that there is a relationship in this. Or is there? But there's a bit of a ship in this one, but it's done subtly. It's not that the romance takes over from the action. It's not that the romance takes over from the horrendous events that are happening in this world. But it's still there, and I think that's nice. That Mare and unnamed male, they don't shirk their responsibilities just to run off together. And there's even a scene when Mare's brother is in a relationship and he is sneaking back from a rendezvous with his lady, and Mare's like, I don't sneak off with my person in the middle of the daytime. I'm too busy doing training and stuff. And I just think that's really cute that it's like, yeah, that's what you would expect. Like, Shade's relationship is what you would expect from the YA relationships in fantasy. Them sneaking off and missing all of the training sessions because the romance is the more compelling aspect of the plot. And I thought that was quite a good nod towards the way that things are normally done and the way that Victoria Aveyard had chosen to do it. I might be reading way too much into it, but that was the way that I interpreted that scene and I really loved it. I'm just excited. And I didn't think I would be. When I was struggling with the first half of the novel, I thought, oh god, I'm not going to want to pick up the next one. This is going to be a massive hassle. I've literally just bought book 4 on Kindle Daily Deal this month because it's on 99p at the moment. So if you're in the UK and you haven't got Warstorm yet, it's on 99p until the 30th of April. Thank me later. But yes, I've only just bought it because it's a month-long deal. So I bought it on the 1st of April. And if I had then hated book 2 so much that I didn't want to carry on, it would have been really embarrassing. But I don't know how she's going to get enough out of this world for another 2 books, especially not considering how chunky they are. But I really want to find out. I really, really do. And I'm so glad that I've pre-ordered Realmbreaker because I think I'm starting to get why Victoria Aveyard is such a hyped author. I gave Glass Sword 4 stars because it still wasn't perfect, but this is higher than I thought I was going to rate it because when it got to the middle of the novel, I was thinking it was going to be like a 2 or a 3. I thought it was seriously middle book, end of the first quarter syndrome, but it wasn't. And I gave book 1 3.5 stars, so it's a step in the right direction, and I'm excited. But yes, those are the 7 books that we've read so far in April. Sorry that I couldn't really in-depth talk about 5 of them, but at least you managed to get my thoughts on Pop Goes the Weasel and Glass Sword. Remember to check back on the 29th of April, which is when we're going to be putting up our YA Book Prize reading vlog, as long as it's all edited and finished by then. But it should be, because we're halfway through the month and we are on track. We are a book ahead from where we should be, and it's all going well. So fingers crossed, you'll be able to pop back and see that on the 29th of April, and you'll be able to get in-depth thoughts and reactions to these books as we read them. But yes, thank you so much for watching. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, so if you would like to have some regular content from us, feel free to subscribe and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. We'll see you again soon. Bye!